Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We are back. Continuing with our look at the triennial Torah portion. We today are still, of course, in the book of Deuteronomy. We are looking at Deuteronomy chapter 20 today. Deuteronomy chapter 20, Devarim. And we are dealing with when you approach a city. When you approach a city. I was thinking about this week, the idea of, we go through these things, the idea of, repeating myself, right? Going over a thing multiple times, dealing with the same principles over and over again. And then I realized that's only because you're dealing with what we're dealing with is what the Torah is giving to us. And the Torah, this is the emphasis that inspiration. What's it? Oh, yes. This is the inspiration that's brought forth by inspiration itself, right? Not you or I. Okay, so if inspiration decides that a particular idea or concept is important, all I can do is accept that fact and learn from it. And so when we look at these things that we see in the Torah that are repeated, and traditionally speaking, the Torah was read. You read it until you got to the end, and then you start over again, right?
Yeah.
We were supposed to learn this law and impress it upon our children, right? The way that you impress a thing is by repeating these things over and over again, right? And so, especially some of these things that we see over here that we'll begin to be saying over here are things that, if this is Moshe giving his final decrees to the people, like, you'll run into things where he says a thing, and then he just said that like a couple of chapters ago. But, we're looking at it as chapters and verses, but, he probably started talking and he said the thing, and then in the middle of him, in his speech, he says it again, right? And so saying all that just to say that, we should take notice at the things that are kind of repeated, that are brought up over and over again, and try to understand these things to a greater degree, right? And not just kind of just gloss over, oh, that's what he said before, right? And so, right, so I heard him the last time he said that, right? So I don't got it, right? Okay, that being said, we want to go over to the scripture here, and we'll actually read through Deuteronomy 20, and then we'll go back and discuss some of what we find over here. So let me just go ahead and pull up for us the verses. Deuteronomy nice and loud at verse 1.
It says, when you go out to battle against your enemies, and shall see horses and chariots, and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them. For Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you up from the land of Mitzrayim, is with you. And it shall be, when you draw near to the battle, that the priest shall come and speak to the people, and shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, you are drawing near today to battle with your enemies. Do not let your heart faint. Do not fear, or tremble, or be afraid before them. For Yahweh your Elohim is he who goes with you, to fight for you against your enemies, to save you. And the officers shall speak to the people, saying, Who is the man who has built a new house, and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it. And who is the man who has planted a vineyard, and has not begun to use it? Let him also go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man should begin to use it. And who is the man who is engaged to a woman, and has not taken her? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man take her. And the officers shall speak further to the people, and say, Who is the man who is afraid and tender of heart? Let him go and return to his house, lest the heart of his brothers faint like his heart. And it shall be, when the officers have finished speaking to the people, that they shall appoint commanders of the divisions to lead the people. When you draw near to a city to fight against it, then you shall make a call for peace to it. And it shall be that if it accepts your call for peace, and shall open to you, then all the people found in it are to be your compulsory labor? Yeah, compulsory labor, and serve you. But if it does not make peace with you, and shall fight against you, then you shall besiege it. And Yahweh your Elohim shall give it into your hands, and you shall strike every male in it with the edge of the sword. Only the women and the little ones, and the livestock, and all that is in it, all that is in the city, all its spoil, you take as plunder for yourself. And you shall eat the enemy's plunder, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you. Do so to all the cities which are very far from you, which are not of the cities of these nations, only of the cities of these peoples which Yahweh your Elohim gives you as an inheritance. You do not keep alive any that breathe, but you shall certainly put them under the ban, the Hittite and the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite, as Yahweh your Elohim has commanded you, lest they teach you to do according to all their abominations which they have done for their mighty ones, and you sin against Yahweh your Elohim. When you besiege a city for a long time by fighting against it to take it, you do not destroy its trees by wielding an axe against them. If you do eat of them, do not cut them down. For is the tree of the field a man to be besieged by you? Only the trees which you know are not trees for food you do destroy and cut down to build siege works against the city that is fighting against you until it falls.
Okay, very good. I guess let's kind of work backwards some, because I wanted to spend more time at the top of the chapter. But there was a few things that we take notice of. We see that there was a difference. There was a difference between what the Most High, through Moses, expects in terms of, going out to battle with these nations, the nations that were far away, And I guess he was just saying that just to say the nations that were not part of these 7 wicked nations: the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and the Gershites, the Girgashites, I should say. They're not always listed, but they're part of the land of Canaan. Those other nations that they went to, they could go and the men kill the men, keep alive the women and the children. But of course, the ones that were part of the land of Canaan, you were to utterly destroy these people, right? You were taking over their inheritance was being handed to you, and you were removing them and also the remembrance of them. And I guess when you think about the remembrance of a people, you can't have the people left behind, obviously, because they would of course remember. Yeah. And so we see that distinction there given between the cities that are very far from you, and the cities which all belong to the land of Canaan. Another thing that just as we were just going over this, it talks about, if we go back up, there was a few things that caught my attention as we were going through verse, that to me, the few things that we see over here kind of have they're similarly themed, I think. Verse 6, and who is the man who has planted a vineyard and has not begun to use it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man should begin to use it, right? So it talks about that in regards to planting a vineyard. A man planting a vineyard, war comes about, he goes to fight in war and dies. And he never planted in his vineyard. It's almost saying that you should actually plant in the vineyard first. It seems it's put more emphasis on your home life as an individual, as opposed to the collective kind of nation, the national consciousness. Verse 7, and who is a man who's engaged to a woman and has not taken her? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle and another man take her. Where it's the same concept in terms of this man going to battle. He has this woman that he's betrothed to, but he goes to battle and he never, finishes his betrothal, because he went to battle and dies there. And so to me, it's interesting that we see these couple verses here that, they're, verse 5, I guess it's 5, 6, and 7. The man who builds his new house and he never dedicates the house. The man who planted a vineyard and he never used the vineyard, and the man who engaged a woman and he never finished the betrothal. All of these ones, he's giving these instructions where it seems as if the emphasis for those people should be on their immediate family situation first before they begin to take care of their national responsibilities, which in fact are their responsibilities, right? The men of a certain age were supposed to go out and be a part of the army. But when we look at these 3 verses here where it deals with the house and the vineyard and the engaged woman, it's saying that let this man go back and take care of his personal business and affairs and have those things be in order and established before he goes out to war. When a man gets married, I believe it's Leviticus. I have to double check and see. When a man gets married, he's supposed to gladden his wife for a whole year. For the whole year, he gladdens her, right? And so it's almost like, people get married and they have a honeymoon, which is a week. Or, some people, I don't know, some people might have a long weekend or a week or a few weeks, right? But it's just a short amount of time. It's not a year. The Torah helps us to understand this principle where, your quote unquote honeymoon situation was a year long. But the principle here is the same, where your household is being established first and foremost. It's the most important aspect of your life. And then once that is taken care of, then you can go back now and take care of your national duties. Right? It wasn't requiring it. It wasn't required of these individuals to even be in the army dealing with these national duties if they had this responsibility. Hold on, what's this here? Oh, is this the verse here? Oh, I thought it was earlier. So it's later. Let's see. Let's look at this here. Let's read the Deuteronomy
24.
24 and 5. What's that say?
24 and 5. It says, when a man has taken a new wife, let him not go out into the army, nor let any matter be imposed upon him. He shall be exempt 1 year for the sake of his home, to rejoice with his wife whom he has taken. Okay,
very good. Okay, this is the verse I was referring to here. It wasn't Leviticus, it was Deuteronomy. A whole year, right? It says, don't let any matter be imposed upon him outside of establishing his home situation, right? Except 1 year for the purpose of his home, to rejoice with his wife whom he has taken. Over there, it's saying to rejoice with her as if they're both of them rejoicing. There's another verse. There's another verse, right? Because don't it talk about him gladdening his. What does it say in the King James? Is that what it say? Gladdening in the King James? Huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just that version.
Oh, okay. It's just that. Okay. But the idea here is that again, we see over here back in Deuteronomy 20, the emphasis seems to be And then it's carried on over in the 24th chapter, this idea of having your home situation be established first.
Yeah.
And that thing being in order and everything in place before dealing with your national responsibilities. And I just thought that was something that was very important. People want to have their hearts and minds dedicated to the kingdom, right? To the kingdom, be kingdom minded. But at the end of the day, the most important thing, even above the kingdom, is your personal kingdom, your home, first and foremost. Yeah. What are you gonna say?
I was just gonna say that, like with the wife thing, from what I've read, it's not like today where they talk. The wife would be able to talk on the phone with her family, or even go over to where her family lives.
Yeah.
She would literally be part of his household and in his family.
Yeah.
And so she would be like, the only time she might see her family is if they was all at a feast gathering together during the holy times. But that wasn't even a guarantee either.
Yeah.
So it would, be sad kind of for her to basically leave everything she knew and join to his household.
Yeah. And when you think about it, it's kind of a thing where on both ends where you have kind of a changing of a situation, right? When you have a person who's belongs, whether it be the son or the daughter, belongs to a particular household, and they're venturing out to kind of establish their own kind of a thing, right? And so I kind of like how the verse in Deuteronomy 24 kind of differs from my memory as to where in my mind it was about gladdening the wife, but in that version it seems like there is kind of a necessity for the both of them, because the both of them kind of are, the husband and the wife are entering into this new state of existence, this change in life status, and it takes getting used to.
Yeah.
And so the Torah, in fact, keeps that in mind, and seeks out to kind of solidify and fully establish a house. And so it's just interesting that when we look at this this law that the Most High has given to us, right? It's if we just thought about this Torah as this these do's and don'ts, you don't know what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Because this law, this Torah, helps us to live, right? It helps us to understand life, and it gives us the tools. It gives us the tools to do so. And so again, I just thought that was an interesting little kind of a thing that we see just in these kind of 4 verses here, dealing with the prioritizing the home life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, also this is going out to fight, not anybody invading.
Right. It's one thing to talk about, people, coming and attacking the nation, right? There's nothing that can be done, right? It's all hands on deck, right? But in terms of going out to fight, that's a different type of a situation, right? There's a call to arms, right? Who's ready to go out and do this? They're probably rallying up the troops, and all of this. But again, according to the Torah, the Most High keeping all these things in mind, we're still humans, right? We're social beings. We have a need. Person, he's not going to be able to properly do what would be responsible for doing, to be doing, if he didn't have all of his affairs properly in order, right? His mind's going to be back at home thinking about his brand new wife, or his not even wife, right? Just a betrothed wife that he wasn't even able to seal the deal with. And so again, I just thought that was an interesting kind of a thing that we see over there in the Torah. All right, but I want to go up a little more in the text here and see something else here. If we look up at verse 1, read for us verse 1 here.
Says, when you go out to battle against your enemies, and shall see horses and chariots, and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them. For Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you up from the land of Mitzrayim, is with you.
Okay, very good. So, this is talking about over here when you go out to battle. Right? You're going to battle your enemies, of course, right? Those are the ones that you battle with. But when you go out to battle, right? When you go out to fight in this engagement of war, when you are a warrior and you manifest your calling of being a warrior and you war. It says over here, and you see all of these things, these horses that you'll see, and these chariots. I don't know if Israel was a nation to even have chariots, right? It's talking about the people of Israel going out against these other nations, and you see horses really of the time. When we see that the instructions are given for if Israel was to make themselves a king, so Israel didn't have a king, but Israel's going to go out and look at these other nations who have kings and want to be like them, and they're going to make themselves a king. So if you do, one of the things was to not multiply horses, because the horses were these instruments of battle and war for whatever reason. When you think about tanks, you think about war, right? That's how we think about things. But in these times, when the prohibition was given to Israel, the idea was not so much that you wasn't supposed to have horses like in a stable or whatever, but the idea of horses was connected with the idea of war, right? And so that king wasn't supposed to be this war monger, right? It's connected with that. And so again, we look over here in Deuteronomy chapter 20, where it's talking about us going out to battle and seeing these war instruments, these chariots, and these horses, and these people that are more numerous than us. It says over there for us not to be afraid, because of the fact that Yahweh is the one who goes out and fights for you against your enemies to save you. Right? That's what it said down there in verse 4. Right? When we look at verse 1, when you go out, go to battle, you're going to see all the people. Right? You're going to get ready to battle. The priest is going to have to remind you of the fact that the Most High will fight for you, right? And so, when we think about, our situation, this is something that the priest, it says, had to remind Moses. First of all, Moses is reminding the people of what the priests would have to remind the people in the event that they went into battle, right? But the thing that he's saying is to them, do not let your heart faint, do not fear, do not tremble or be afraid of these people, because Elohim is he who goes with you to fight for you against the enemies to save you. And I'm saying that we have to have this, continually have this understanding in our minds, right? Because we may not be necessarily putting on boots and going out to physical battles, but we have battles, right? And we have to understand that this fact still remains, that the Almighty is in fact with you, and that he saves you in your battles, right? He did it before. This is what he says over in verse 1. He's the one that brought you up out of the land of Mitzrayim. Yeah. That one, the one that brought you out from the land of Mitzrayim, him, he's with you. Okay? And so we see that he did it in the times of old so that we could understand his track record. Right? Supernaturally and miraculously. When we think about Yeshua and the things that he did supernaturally, from a supernatural standpoint, raising the dead, healing the sick, causing the blind to see, causing the deaf to hear, causing the dumb to speak. All these miraculous things that he did all of these miraculous and supernatural things so that we're able to understand his track record. Right? So we're able to trust in him, and not only the major things, the miraculous and supernatural things, but also the minor things. If he could do all of that, then certainly he can take care of this thing, this light affliction that I may be facing. And so when we look at Deuteronomy chapter 12 and verse number 1, this is a very important verse, I would say, for us, because, how many times do we look at our circumstances and our situations that happen in our life, And these things just have us in a way where our heart faints, right? Where we fear
Yep.
and tremble. And when we are afraid because of these things, right? When we look at these horses and these chariots and these people that are more numerous than us, these situations that are seemingly insurmountable. Is it insurmountable or unsurmountable? I don't know what it is. But it's this big thing that we're facing where the odds are against us. And it's a battle that we're entering into with our enemy. And they have much horses and chariots. He says over here, don't be fearful, don't tremble, don't be afraid, and let not your heart be faint. It's interesting when we look at the Apostle Paul, he gives us insight into how we're able to realize the message that we see over here in Deuteronomy chapter 20. Because when we see over here in Deuteronomy chapter 20, this basically is, you're going to get into a situation that's bigger than what you are. It's bigger than what you're physically capable of withstanding even. But don't worry. Right? Because the Most High is going to take care of it for you. But there's no other components to the situation. It's basically faith. Only. Right? And memory of what he did already. Right? To those that are at the point that they're too young to remember what it is that the Most High had did. I'm talking about in Deuteronomy. For them, it's just faith only. Or maybe, for them, it's just, listening to their parents. And so again, not to say that they're given these instructions that they're not able to meet. But when we look over in Deuteronomy, we see this in other places when we look in the so-called Old Testament, where the Most High gives these instructions, circumcise your heart, right? Where there's a thing that you may be able to do. He's not giving you an instruction that is impossible for you to meet. But what we find over in the so-called New Testament, he's given us tools that help us to a greater degree than what those people had at that time. Not that he was giving them this impossible task, but now he's given us more than what he provided for the people. Again, when we think about the old covenant, quote unquote, versus the new covenant, the old covenant was external. Right? It was in fact the laws, statutes, and commands. This is what what is required of you. The new covenant, what it essentially is the Most High providing for us the tools that help us to meet the requirements that were given. And so we look over, what we're going to do is look over in Ephesians chapter 6, because we see the same thing that we see over in Deuteronomy chapter 20 in terms of this thing. When you go to battle against your enemies, don't be afraid, because Yahweh your Elohim fights for you. In Deuteronomy, again, we see instructions given. This is what is required of you. Be strong, right? Be courageous, right? Don't fear. And the catalyst behind it is the Most High fought for you in the past, right? But there's something that's similar and also expanded upon when we look over in Ephesians chapter 6. Let's go over to Ephesians chapter 6 and read a few verses over here. Let me pull that up for us. Read for us verse 10 down through 17.
Ephesians 6 and 10 says, "For the rest, my brothers, be strong in the Master and in the mightiness of his strength. Put on the complete armor of Elohim, for you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim, so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all, to stand. Stand then, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim."
Okay, very good. So, okay, looking at this, it's interesting the connection over here when we see in verse 10 where the writer over here is saying to the people, finally, brethren, be strong, he says, right? But he's not only given this instruction to be strong, but he's also helping the people to understand where it is that their strength comes from, right? Similarly, like how when we see over in Deuteronomy, essentially the same thing is true. He's telling the people, you're going to see these battles ahead of you. You're going to see these enemies in front of you with these horses and these chariots. He don't say be strong. He say don't fear.
Yep.
Right? Which is the opposite, right? And he's saying basically the same thing. Be strong, don't fear, because the Most High fights for you.
Yep.
Right? And so we see over here in Ephesians, be strong, it says, in the Master and in the mightiness of his strength. And so, without even knowing what is getting ready to talk to you about, we know that our strength over here is in the Master. Right? And it says in the mightiness of his strength. Well, what is that? What is the power? What's the power of his might that it speaks of over here? The mightiness of his strength, or the power of his might. What is that? The master, of course, is Yeshua, right? But what's the power? What's the mightiness of his strength? What's the power of his strength? Because whatever that is, the power of his might is the thing that empowers us to actually be strong.
Yep.
Right? So whatever it is, whatever the power of his might is, whatever the mightiness of his strength is, that is the thing that empowers us to be strong. That's what this is saying over here. For the brethren, be strong. How you going to be strong? In the master and in the mightiness of his strength. So we need to understand what actually is the mightiness of his strength. Right? What is the powers of his might? Let's go back a few chapters over here and look at Ephesians chapter 1. Because again, we're still talking about Deuteronomy chapter 20 in terms of going into these battles and dealing with our enemies with their horses and their chariots and not being afraid.
Yep.
Okay, same thing right over here, but it's Paul giving us more information. Let's go back to Ephesians 1, and let's look at verses. Let's start reading at 18, and let's go down to 23.
It says, the eyes of your understanding being enlightened, so that you know what is the expectation of his calling, and what are the riches of the esteem of his inheritance and the set apart ones.
Okay, hold on 1 second. So if we just talk about the eyes of your understanding being enlightened. If we talk about the eyes of your understanding being enlightened, this over here is the work of the Ruach HaKodesh. The way that the eyes of your understanding are enlightened is through the power of the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, so read for us also verse 19.
And what is the exceeding greatness of his power toward us, who are believing, according to the working of his mighty strength?
Okay, so again, let's compare. We're going to finish reading this, but I want to compare, because again, we see over here now the exceeding greatness of his power towards us. Right? We're able to understand the exceeding greatness of his power towards us. And that's connected to the eyes of your understanding being enlightened. Right? So we're able to understand the exceeding greatness of his power from the eyes of our understanding being enlightened. So let's add to that. We're going to continue with chapter 1 of Ephesians as we think about what is the power of his might. But let's go over to 1 John 3. 1 John 3 and 24. 1 John 3. What's it say in verse 24?
And the one guarding his commands stays in him, and he in him. And by this we know that he stays in us, by the Spirit which he gave us.
Okay, so by the Spirit that the Most High gives to you, it helps you to understand things of the Spirit.
Yeah.
And by this we know that he stays in us by the Spirit which he gave us. Right? There's an understanding that comes to us through the working of the Spirit in us. Right? The eye of our understanding is enlightened by the Ruach. Right? And we're able to understand spiritual things by the Spirit. First Corinthians chapter 2. Read for us verses 9 through 11.
But it has been written, eye has not seen, and ear has not heard, nor have entered into the heart of man what Elohim has prepared for those who love him. But
You in your eye, you in your unenlightened eye, you haven't seen or you haven't heard, and it's not even in your heart the things that have been prepared for you.
Yep. But Elohim says, but Elohim has revealed them to us through his spirit.
Okay, so through the spirit though, you're able to see, hear, and be entered into your heart these other things. Your understanding, the eyes of your understanding are enlightened by the Spirit.
Uh-huh.
It has been revealed to us through the Spirit. Keep on.
Says, for the Spirit searches all matters, even the depths of Elohim.
Verse 11.
For who among men knows the thoughts of a man except the spirit of the man that is in him? So also the thoughts of Elohim no one has known except the spirit of Elohim.
Okay, so things of the Spirit are made known to those with the Spirit by the Spirit. Right? So again, the eyes of your understanding are enlightened by the Spirit. Okay? So going back to Ephesians 1, let's go back over there. Let's go back to Ephesians chapter 1. We still talking about Ephesians chapter 6, and we still talking about Deuteronomy chapter 20. But we're looking at it through the eyes of Ephesians. Chapter 1 right now, if we look over at, we read verse 18 and 19. 19 again, where it talks about the power towards us who are believing, according to the working of his mighty strength. So there's an understanding, right, that we have with our eyes being enlightened, that there is some exceeding greatness of his power that has been directed towards us that believe, according to the working of his mighty strength, or his power, right? Which is the Ruach. It's the Ruach HaKodesh. Read verse 20.
Which he wrought in the Messiah when he raised him from the dead and seated him at his right hand in the heavenlies.
Okay, verse 20 helps us to understand that this power of his might, the Most High, the power of the Most High's might, worked in raising Messiah from the dead. Part of the thing that the Ruach HaKodesh did for Messiah, one of the many things, was to raise him from the dead, an expression of his power and his might. Another thing is that it seated him, Yeshua, at the Most High, right hand in the heavenlies. Right? So we see the Most High's resurrection power over here. And we also see the Most High's glorification power over here. All of these things are examples of the mighty strength of the Most High, which, by the way, is in fact his Ruach Hakodesh. Finish this up 21 through 23 here.
Far above all rule and authority and power and mastery, and every man that is named, not only in this age, but also in that which is to come. And he put all under his feet, and gave him to be head over all to the assembly, which is his body, the completeness of him who fills all in all.
Okay, so we see what the manifestation of the power of the Most High given over to Yeshua, the Son, this power, and the same power who the substance of Yeshua and his power is his body, which is his people, working in this power, this Ruach HaKodesh. So we see that this is an example over here of this power, of this Ruach, right? And we see that its use is far-reaching, right? It's not just one thing, right? It's many things, right? But the same is true when we look at, going back to Ephesians chapter, where's my cursor at? Chapter 6, verse 10, where it's talking about this being strong in the master and the mightiness of his strength. Again, is giving us the know-how to be able to do it, right? It's giving us more understanding as to what this actually means. And so verse 11, where it says over here to put on the whole armor of Elohim, for you to have power to stand against the schemes of the devil. Right? This is talking about battles. Right? This is talking about your enemies. When we come up against our enemies and we're going out into battle, and we see our enemies with their horses and their chariots and their schemes, right? You have power to stand against all of those things when you put on the complete armor of Elohim. Okay. Verse 12. Did you read verse 12 already? Read it again.
It says, because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age.
Okay, very good.
Against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavens.
All right, so we, have to understand that we absolutely experience physical battles, right? When we look back in Deuteronomy chapter 20, it's giving you this example of these physical battles, right? But what we have to understand is that there's a spiritual motivation behind the spiritual battles. Yeah, we wrestle, we fight against flesh and blood. We do. But the writer over here wants for us to be able to understand that we need to understand what's behind the flesh and blood. And we have to know that the primary battle that we have is with what is going on beneath the surface. Right? And so, we have to think about the fact that, when we look at this this thing that's being described over here, this armor, right? This isn't about the armor, right? Because when you think about this, he's kind of describing this thing that was, not something that we, this is not what we looked like, right? He's really describing Roman armor, right? With their breastplates and their shields and their helmets, right? It's not about that necessarily. What it's about, the armor that's is really abstract, right? It's just a metaphor, right? But it's something that the people understood because they dealt with the Romans walking around in their armor, right? That's what they saw, the people going around, right? But the important thing to focus on here is the things that are giving you the ability to stand or to be strong against the enemy, right? And so when we see over here, if we're talking about standing, right? Because that's what this whole armor of Elohim is giving you the ability to do, right? We need to understand that not only is it talking about standing, but it's talking about not falling, right? Because if we're standing, of course, we're not falling, right? One is we talking about the positive action would be standing, right? The negative action would be falling, right? And so we have to be able to know that, this is helping us to be able to stand, right? And so the way that we go into battle without fear and stand and not fall, right, and not fail in the face of adversity is to be strong by the Ruach. Okay, so when we look over here, again back in Ephesians chapter 6, because of the fact that we are going to face these battles, these physical battles that we're going to face that are spiritually motivated. Also when we go back and understand that, again, these spiritual motivations are by these dealing with these principalities and authorities and these world rulers of darkness of this age and spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. If we remember back in chapter 1, all power is given to Yeshua. And so all of these things is talk about his subordinates. Right? These are the things that's under him. Yep. Because it said that over here, hold on, what do we see over here? If Yeshua is on the right hand and far above all rule and authority and power, if Yeshua is above all rule and authority and power, by the time we get over to chapter 6 and talking about these motivations that are coming, that are spiritual, that are spiritual, and these principalities and these authorities, all of these things are under Yeshua. Yep. He's over all of these things, right? And so when we think about where Yeshua is, it should help us to understand where we lie in the face of our enemies, in the face of these things that come against us. Right? And so when we have these things, these situations, these circumstances that come against us, with their chariots and with their horses, we have the ability to stand against these things when we understand who Yeshua is and what he does for us. Right? This is taking up the complete armor of Elohim. This is allowing for his power and might to be manifest in and through you. And the same thing is true, again, when we think about back in Deuteronomy chapter 20, the only reason why the people would have been able to go up against these other nations was because the Most High is fighting for his people. Same thing is true over here. All right, so let's look at some of these things over here. Verse 14. Verse 14, just look at, let's see here. It says in 14, stand, right? Don't fall. Stand. But when we see stand, we can also see be strong. Having girded your waist with truth. We think about, again, he's given us this idea of these this soldier and his army, as this picture, right? So it's talking about this idea of having your loins girded. Your loins girded. Your loins really is your inner strength. Your loins is your inner strength, right? This is kind of what this kind of represents. When you gird up your loins, when you gird up your intestinal fortitude, right? You get your mind right, and get ready to go into battle, right? And so you're able to stand by having your inner strength girded with truth. With truth.
Yep.
Okay, so let's look over at a few things over here. John chapter 1 and 17. Because in order to stand, we got to have some truth about us. But we can't stand. You're going to fall. You can't be strong. 1 and 17. You can't face adversity and your enemies. You can't go into battle and prevail. John 1 and 17. What does that say?
It says, for the Torah was given through Moshe. The favor of the truth came through Yeshua Messiah.
The favor, grace, and truth came through Yeshua Messiah. 14 and 6. 14 and verse 6.
Verse 6 says, Yeshua said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me.
Yeshua is, in fact, the truth. The truth came through him, and it only came through him because whenever he manifested himself, that's what he was the truth.
Yep.
Right? And so, again, when we're thinking about this idea of having your loins girt about with truth, having your inner strength actually be Yeshua. He's the truth. This is how we face our enemies and don't fall. We understand that our inner strength is from the truth itself. He is the truth. It's Yeshua. Verse Same chapter 17.
Verse 17.
14, 17, yeah.
The Spirit of the truth, whom the world is unable to receive, because it does not see him or know him. But you know him, for he stays with you and shall be in you.
The Spirit of truth. The Spirit of truth. There's many spirits. There's all kinds of spirits. Right? We talked about last week people dealing with these familiar spirits. Right? But this over here is talking about the Spirit of truth. We've already established that the Spirit of truth is Yeshua.
Yep.
And so, when we think about the Spirit of truth, again, this Spirit of truth, who is Yeshua, and the Ruach in you strengthens you and gives you strength and the ability to stand. Uh, 16 and 13. What's that say?
16 and 13 says, but when he comes, the Spirit of the truth, he shall guide you into all the truth. For he shall not speak from himself, but whatever he hears he shall speak. And he shall announce to you what is to come.
Okay, the Spirit of truth, again, is going to guide you into all truth. And so when we think about the idea of standing with our loins girded in truth by the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the Spirit of truth, right? Something we must be able to consistently do is actually be led by and follow the leading of the Spirit. It's not something that's automatic. Right? It's not something that's just, you say that you've come to the knowledge of the truth. People talk about this all the time, how long you've been in the truth. I came to the knowledge of the truth. So and so, whenever and however, right? But this thing is necessary for you to actually be led and actually follow the leading of the Spirit of truth. Okay, you need to follow the Ruach. And by doing so, this will help you to be able to stand. Right? It will help you to be able to not fall. And this will help you to be able to be strong. But we have to consider the fact, again, that this is something that, the way Paul describes it over in the Ephesians chapter 6 is putting on this armor. Right? And so you have to manifest these things that have been made available to you. Okay, Yeshua has given you these tools, right? As a warrior and representative of the kingdom of Elohim, you've been given these tools, but it's necessary for you to actually use these things.
Yep.
Okay? The Spirit of truth is said will guide you into all truth. if you let it lead you.
Yep.
When people sit up here and talk about being in the truth, but it's a difference between being in the truth and being led by the Spirit into all truth.
Yep.
There's a lot of people who have a lot of truth, finger quoted truth, right? But did the Spirit of the Most High lead you to that truth? Sometimes the Most High, I'm saying the Most High, but sometimes you may allow the Most High to lead you to a certain point, and then at some point you may in fact veer away from that leading, and still assume or still kind of put forth the idea that you was led in this particular direction.
Yeah.
But was you though? Yeah. We're able to know whether you was or you wasn't. Yep. The funny thing about this whole thing is that people can say, well, the Most High led me to do this or to do that. Yeah. But because of the fact that we, by the Spirit, are able to know the Spirit, people don't expect you to say, no, he didn't. They don't expect you to say that, but you're able to say that. You're able to say that because the scriptures give us these verses over here that help us to understand that you know the Spirit by the Spirit.
Yep.
We're able to look at the Most High. We're able to look at Yeshua and his track record and to know what things we're able to say that can be attributed to the Most High and his son Yeshua. And when people veer away, we're able to see it. You can see it.
Yep.
And so, again, when we're talking about this idea of going into battle, dealing with battling your enemies, the way that you stand is to gird up your loins. And by the way, your loins have to continue to be girded.
Yep.
It's not something it's not like a one-time thing. Like, I girded up my loins back in the late 90s. But the way that you're led into all truth is by the leading and guiding of the Spirit. It's not like the Most High is not standing somewhere and pointing in a direction saying go that way. But he's leading you. He's guiding you. So you're continually following him.
Yep.
It's not like he said, people out here living their lives like Yeshua said, go that way. But he waves back behind and you just go ahead on ahead. That's not what happened. In fact, it's interesting because when we think about the thing that troubled Moshe so much after the golden calf situation was essentially the Most High saying, go over there.
I'll see you on the other side.
And yeah, I'll meet you over there. I'll send this messenger with you and I'll meet you there. Go ahead.
Yeah, like that.
But Moses understood that it was necessary not to have a messenger take them, but that he needed to follow the leading and the guiding of the Spirit to go over there. And so that message that Moses clearly understood is something that we need to get to the place of understanding that this thing ain't about this thing that you learned about long ago and you started a journey moving in a particular direction, but it's about being led by the Spirit of truth and allowing the Spirit to guide you into truth. And so you're understanding what the Spirit of truth is, and you're allowing the Spirit of truth to lead you to his own self, who is truth. So Yeshua is the way to himself. He's the truth and he's the way. But the truth, the Spirit of truth is guiding you to the truth. He's all of that. Right? What's this say over here? He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father but by me. That's what it says right there. That's what Yahushua said. But even saying that, he's all inclusive. Right? He's the way to the truth. He is the truth. And he is the final destination, which is the life. And so this is something that we have to be able to understand so that we're able to stand.
Yep.
Because we're going to face these enemies. We're going to encounter these battles where we need to be able to stand and not fall and be strong and not fear or tremble, or be afraid. But when we're able to understand and know that our inner strength comes from Yeshua, this is the main, one of the main components to standing. Okay? Is this truth. Right? But let's go back to Ephesians chapter 6. Let's go back to chapter 6 because we deal with the having our loins girded. But what else we gonna have over here? Not only are we gonna have our loins girded, not only are we gonna have our inner strength fortified with truth, but also we're going to have on this breastplate of righteousness. Right? We're going to have this breastplate of righteousness. And remember again, this is this imagery. It's this imagery that has been given to us, for our understanding. But when we think about this breastplate of righteousness, what is there to be said about this righteousness that we're going to have that is protecting our vital organs? Right? This thing that we have that protects our vital organs, right? Everything that's important to your living is going to be behind the breastplate. Like your heart and your lungs and your kidneys and your liver, your appendix. People try to get you to believe you don't need your appendix, but that thing is in there for something, right? But your breastplate is going to protect all of these things, right? And so the breastplate over here, in terms of this thing that the writer is describing as this thing that helps you to be able to stand, to be strong, to withstand the wicked day, and doing everything that you're able to do in order to stand. Look over at Romans chapter 10. Romans chapter 10, verse 3.
Verse 3 says, "For not knowing the righteousness of Elohim, and seeking to establish their own righteousness, they did not subject themselves to the righteousness of Elohim."
Okay, read 4 also with that.
For Messiah is the goal of the Torah unto righteousness to everyone who believes.
The righteousness of Elohim is Yeshua. Not knowing the righteousness of Elohim, the people were seeking to establish their own righteousness and not subjecting themselves to the actual righteousness of Elohim. The righteousness of Elohim is Yeshua. Paul could have just said put on Yeshua? Because so far when we look, everything he's talking about is actually Yeshua. Yeshua is the truth, but Yeshua is the righteousness. The people, they rejected the righteousness. They rejected the righteousness. They rejected Yeshua. But here, let's look at 1 Corinthians 1 and 30. 1 Corinthians. 3 verse 30.
And of him you are in Messiah Yeshua, who became for us wisdom from Elohim, righteousness also, and set apartness and redemption.
He became for us righteousness. Yeshua became for us righteousness.
Yep.
And so the thing that we need in battle that protects our vital organs is the thing that Yeshua became for us, which is righteousness. Yeshua provides for us through our faith in him. He causes us to kind of have a status of righteousness in Messiah. Okay, so he puts us in a place of right standing with the Most High.
Yep.
And this is the thing that protects our internal organs, our heart. Right? He puts our heart in a place of protection by faith in him. Right? And so again, when we think about this idea of facing these principalities and these spiritual wickednesses in high and low places, these things that come against us in battle that are proving themselves to be our enemies, that can in fact be mighty in their own right, but they're not mightier than the Almighty. They're not higher than the Most High. And so we're able, when we put on the breastplate of righteousness, which is Yeshua, and when we gird our loins with truth, which is Yeshua, to be able to stand against these things. And by the way, sometimes you might fight a physical battle and lose the physical battle. But you win in the spirit, though. Because I think that's what Paul's getting for us to understand. We could have this fear of losing the physical part and miss out on the fact that there's a spiritual part behind the physical part that's more important.
Yeah.
And so we think that we have to have a physical victory in order to maintain our spiritual victory, which It's not the case, because we have to be able to look towards and understand the motivation of all of these things, knowing that you can win a battle, but the war is already won. What are you saying over here? The breastplate also covers the organs offered to Yahweh. These are also primary blood moving and blood cleansing organs. Yes, absolutely. The breastplate covers all of the inner organs. When it talks about the thing that you gave over to the Most High, it talks about the kidneys. Right? These inner organs. The kidneys cleanses the blood. Right? And so, again, you think about this breastplate, that this imagery that the writer's given to you in terms of this breastplate of righteousness, understanding that Yeshua is our righteousness. Yeshua cleanses our blood. He moves our blood, right? When we receive that spiritual heart transplant, he moves our blood. He cleanses our blood, right? Because he protects, our inner organs.
Yep.
Right? So let's keep on going. Let's go back over to Ephesians. We're still talking about going against our enemies, right? Going into battle, and seeing our enemies' horses and chariots. How is it that we're going to respond to these things? How is it that we're going to be able to stand against all of its things that it's going to bring against us? Having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace, with the gospel of peace.
Good news.
So when we think about our feet, having your feet shod with the gospel of peace, dealing with what's under your feet. What's under your feet? What is it that you're standing on? What is it that's your foundation? Right? Yeshua is the chief cornerstone. Right? The chief cornerstone. That's what the building is built on. Right? And so when we think about this idea of having your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace, right, is understanding that your foundation, the thing that you're standing on, is the gospel of peace. What's it say over here in Isaiah? Yeshua. Read for us verse number 5.
But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our crookedness. The chastisement for our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed.
The chastisement of our peace was upon him. The discipline, the correction of our peace, the reproof, the rebuke of our peace was on him. when we think about the fact that because of the condition of the people, Israel, mankind,
Yep.
we weren't in a place of peace with the Most High. We was at a place of enmity against the Most High. And so there was rebuke that was owed to us. Right? There was correction and discipline that was afforded to us. Right? There was chastisement that was prepared and ready for us because we weren't actually in a state of peace, right, on the outside. But that chastisement, that correction, that discipline, that rebuke was put upon Yeshua. And because of that, now we're able to have peace. Right? And so the way in which we receive peace is because of the fact that first and foremost, the chastisement that was made for us was placed upon Yeshua. And so again, when we talk about this idea of warfare, of battle, having this as your foundation helps you to stand. It's the only way that you stand. That's what Paul's talking about over here. Having this as the thing that you stand on, the fact that Yeshua was the chastisement for our peace.
Yep.
Is the way in which you stand against the wiles of the devil. Romans, let's look over at Romans 5. Read for us verse number 1.
Therefore, having been declared right by belief, we have peace with Elohim through our Master Yeshua Messiah.
We have peace with Elohim because of what Yeshua has done. Having been declared right by faith.
Yep.
We have peace with Elohim now through Yeshua. But Paul said, having this armor on, your feet shod with the gospel of peace, is how we're able to stand against our enemies. It's interesting because when you think about this, what does this really have to do with people, things, situations coming down against you? Yeshua and what he did for you. Again, we have to think about again what it is that Paul, what the writer, is saying over here. Again, understanding first and foremost these things that are happening, that are and potentially are happening to you, is spiritual warfare.
Yep.
And so, therefore, understanding that, again, you may or may not win a physical battle, but you're not defeated from a spiritual standpoint if you understand where you are as a result of what it is that Yeshua has done already for you.
Yep.
And so it has everything to do with what it is that you face out here in this world, because it's really about how you allow for these things to affect you, right? Because we're talking about what's going on in the spirit realm, not dealing with the physical realm. He said you're not fighting. Your war is not about flesh and blood. He's saying it don't matter what's going on in the physical. Paul got all kinds of stories. He faced all types of physical downfalls, placed in jail, beaten, whipped, and all types of things. Shipwrecked, right? All of these things, right? And so, in all of that, from a physical standpoint, yes, he was defeated. He got beat up.
Yep.
He got put in places where he couldn't get out. But from a spiritual standpoint, he won. And so when we think about the idea of having a peace that passes all understanding, you receive that peace from Yeshua. And so therefore, again, in order to be able to stand, we have to be able to stand on the fact of Yeshua is that peace, and he provides for us that peace. But not only that, look what it says over here also in Ephesians. Go to Ephesians chapter 2. Ephesians chapter 2, 14 through 17.
14. For he is our peace, who has made both one, and having broken down the partition of the barrier, having abolished in his flesh the enmity, the Torah of the commands and dogma, so as to create him in himself one renewed man from the two, thus making peace, and to completely restore to favor both of them unto Elohim in one body through the stake, having destroyed the enmity by it, and having come, he brought as good news peace to you who were far off, and peace to those near.
Okay, so again, this foundation that we must have in order to stand against the fiery darts of the devil is this foundation of the fact that because of what it is that Yeshua has done, we're no longer enemies with the Most High, but we are at peace with the Most High. He's no longer against us. He's right. He's no longer dealing with us based on what we deserve, because Yeshua has received the chastisement, the payment for our peace. And now he gives us this great peace. And now when we stood at the face of a battle against the Most High, which we lose that battle, he says, don't worry about that. We're at peace.
Yep.
Oh boy, let's look at 2 Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians 3. Read verse 16.
Verse 16 says, and the master of peace himself give you peace always in every way. The master be with you all.
Yeshua is in fact the master of peace. He's the Lord of peace. He's the controller. He is the controller of peace. If Yeshua is the master of peace, how is something going to come around and take my peace? How can something take my peace if Yeshua is the master of peace? Yeshua is the sole controller of my peace. So can't nothing come around and take it, because you ain't taking it off of me. You taking it from him. If he's the master of it, he gave it to you. If I give you something, if I declare something to be yours, how's somebody else gonna come along, unless we talking about colonialism or something? How's somebody else gonna come along and say this is no longer yours? From a spiritual standpoint, this is an impossibility.
Yep.
Okay? And so this is something that we have to be able to understand, that Yeshua, who is the master of our peace, no battle that we might face changes that. No thing that we come up against, no matter how many horses, no matter how many chariots, changes the fact that he is in fact the master of our peace, and whether these chariots and horses was there or wasn't there didn't have no effect on him giving us peace in the first place.
Yep.
Somebody need to get up from their computers and jump up and turn around in a circle and come and sit back down again. Because no thing is able to control our peace, because Yeshua is the master of it.
Yep.
What this say? What this say over here? Joshua 1:1. Dude, this is 9 verses here. Yahweh says, "Don't be afraid nor dismayed, because he gives you every place the soles of your feet tread, and none will be able to stand against you, because Elohim is with you wherever you go."
Yep.
These words over here, because, is the most important words in this whole thing over here. Because. Don't be afraid or dismayed because of what it is that the Most High has done for you. The same thing is true for us even now. Okay, so when we think about this, what we're talking about in terms of going into a battle, when we approach a city, when we see our enemies, afar off, and we begin to get into these situations and circumstances, we cannot be afraid or dismayed because of them, because Yeshua has provided for us peace, right? He's provided for us righteousness, right? He's provided for us truth, that we're able to stand and be strong and not fall in the face of adversity.
Yep.
Okay, so looking back, we see that we have also, it says above all, Ephesians 6:16, above all, taking the shield of faith. The shield of faith. The shield of faith If you have a shield, right? We're talking about a shield. The shield blocks weapons, handheld weapons, and projectiles, right? Things in the land and things in the air, right, are all protected by a shield. We see over in Ephesians, it talks about wherewith you shall be able to quench the fiery darts of the wicked. But again, this thing that's protecting us is faith. Hebrews 12, verse 2.
Looking to the Prince and the Perfecter of our belief, Yeshua, who for the joy that was set before him endured the stake, having despised the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of Elohim.
Yeshua is the Prince and Perfecter of our faith. He is the author and finisher of our faith.
Yep.
If our faith was a book, he wrote the book. If there's an ending to the book, it's because of him that is there. He's the perfecter. He's the perfecter of it. He brings it to its full maturity, our faith. He's the establisher of it. He's the manifester of it.
Yep.
Our faith. And so again, we think about this whole armor. All roads lead to Yeshua. Because of what it is that Yeshua has done for us, gives us the ability to be able to stand in the face of adversity. It's interesting because, again, we think about, all of this. It don't matter what any of these other things could possibly even be. It don't matter what the things are. It don't matter what the problem is. It don't matter who the enemy is. It only matters what Yeshua has done for you. Right? When the Most High, when he come back, he only checking for a few things. He only checking for a few things. Go over to Revelation 14. Read for us verse number 12.
12 says, "Here is the endurance of the set apart ones. Here are those guarding the commands of Elohim and the belief of Yeshua."
The faith of Yeshua. People sit up here and, they kind of, I've been in the faith so-and-so and such since when? Whenever, right? The faith of Yeshua.
Yeah.
The thing that qualifies you as being, one of these set apart ones is that you're one that guards the commandments of Elohim and the faith of Yeshua. And so again, just like when we talk about the idea of the spirit and the power of Elohim, the power of Elohim being this thing that is far-reaching and multifaceted. When we think about faith in Yeshua is something that encompasses all kinds of things. And so, again, it's necessary for us to have all of these things in, a full understanding of these things within ourselves so that we're able to sustain these attacks that we will indeed face. Okay, this shield of faith. Shield of faith. All right, so not only do we have this shield of faith, but we have this helmet. We have this helmet of salvation. This helmet of salvation. Let's go over to Luke. Luke 19. Luke 19. What's verses 9 and 10? Hold on one second here. Read that for us, 9 and 10.
It says that Yeshua said to him, "Today deliverance has come to this house, since he also is a son of Abraham. For the son of Adam has come to seek and to save what was lost."
Okay, very good. This is an interesting little thing. Yeshua shows up at this individual's home. He wants to come and hang out with this character, right? This person. He didn't do nothing to him. He didn't heal him. He didn't save him from anything. He didn't deliver him from anything, right? But what he says over here today, deliverance has come to this house. He didn't deliver anything at the house, but he's letting these people know who he is. Salvation. This day, salvation came to this house. Just again by just virtue of him being there, right? Because he is, in fact, salvation, right? That's what we learn over here. Back in Matthew, whenever he's even given a name. What does it say in verse 21?
Verse 21 says, and she shall give birth to a son, and you shall call his name Yeshua, for he shall save his people from their sins. Yes.
Yeshua, of course, means he shall save. Right? So whenever he goes over to Zacchaeus' house and says that this day salvation came to your house, he literally came to his house, but understanding, of course, from a spiritual perspective, that Yeshua is in fact salvation, and he will in fact save his people from their sins.
Yep.
And so again, talking about the whole armor, all goes back to Yeshua. It all goes back to Yeshua, right? The helmet of salvation, the shield of faith, right? The shoes of the gospel of peace, the breastplate of righteousness, your loins girded with truth. And then the last thing that it mentions over there is the sword of the Spirit. The sword of the Spirit, which it says is the word of Elohim. And so when we think about the Spirit again, understanding that first of all, this of course is, as a writer even begins to say from the very beginning, you're in spiritual warfare anyway. And so the weapons of your warfare are in fact spiritual. And so when we think about these weapons of our warfare, the thing that we use as our offensive weapon, our sword, is in fact the Spirit, which it says is the word of Elohim. And so when we think about that, it's not just talking about the Bible, right? Again, it's going back to think about the idea of the Spirit of truth, the Spirit that we follow, the Spirit that leads us and guides us. Yeshua, in fact, being the living Word, right? And we follow Yeshua, right? Because He is our shepherd, right? He went away and He said that He was going to send back His Spirit, and we, the Father and Yeshua, was going to make He says they were going to make we're going to make our abode with you. And so when we think about the Spirit, the sword of the Spirit, again, which is the word of Elohim, again, we're talking about the fact that Yeshua is our offense. Right? He is what we use against these spiritual principalities and powers that come up against us, that come in the guise of these people that stand in front of us. And so again, when we think about all of this in the light of Deuteronomy, we think about all of this in the light of Deuteronomy in terms of going up against these various nations and these enemies that we come up against, that we fight up against. It says again, we can't be afraid of these things, right? We can't be faint-hearted in the face of these things. Do not be afraid or panic or tremble, right? All of the things that we could potentially be. He's saying, don't be any of those things. For Yahweh, your Elohim, is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. And so again, we think about the important ingredients is that we need to be able to face these things that are against us. It's about having that faith, that true faith in Yeshua, right? That trustworthiness, right? That steadfastness, that permanence, that assurance, that continuance and continuity that we have in the fact that no matter what it is that comes against you, again, we look over and see what the Most High is saying in terms of Israel facing these people. It didn't matter who the people was, because whoever they was, the Most High was going to be there with them. And so when we think about this idea of faith and walking in faith against our enemies into battle, it don't matter what we are facing. It don't matter who's on the other end. The only thing that matters is that we are in right standing with the Most High, and that He, in fact, will fight our battles. So when we look over at here, let's go over to real quick Romans. Romans 15 and 4.
It says, "For whatever was written before was written for our instruction, that through endurance and encouragement of the scriptures we might have the expectation."
The things that was written before the Torah was written for our instruction, that through endurance and encouragement of the scriptures we might have hope or a positive expectation. When we look over at what is being instructed over in Deuteronomy, what is written before, it's saying you're going to go into battle. You're going to go into battle, but don't worry because I'm with you. And it's the same thing we think about what it says over in Ephesians, what we just got finished reading in regards to going into battle. It doesn't matter what you're going to go through because of what was written beforehand. You're able to endure because of all of the things that Yeshua has done for us, has made available to us through the power of the Ruach HaKodesh. We're able to go through this world that is against us and that provides for us all of these potholes and these obstacles and all of these things that is against us, that's set up to ruin us. He helps us to be able to endure these things and encourage us to have hope in the fact that we are on the right side of things because of what we have with the Most High.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to look at, these things and, reiterate this idea over here because Moses reiterated it. The fact that, we're going to face things, right? We're going to come into the face of battles and enemies. And, these battles with these enemies are going to be great. They're going to have all types of horses and chariots. They're going to have all types of things that are against us that we don't have. They're going to be these nations that are greater than ourselves, but they're not greater than the Almighty.
Yep.
They're not higher than the Most High. They're not greater than the Master of our lives, who is Yeshua HaMashiach, who is the Master of our peace, right? And so we have to be able to remember, again, that, what the world didn't give us.
Can't take it away.
The world can't take away, right? These people, these things, these situations, these circumstances didn't never give us peace in the first place, right? Yeshua did. And so, the thing that he establishes, only he is able to disestablish. All right? The things that he builds and creates, he's the only one that could destroy it. Well, you could destroy it, actually, by not trusting in it. Right? And so, we have to be able to just simply remember and think about the armor of the Most High. It's really about remembering what Yeshua has done for us. And not even remembering, constantly knowing. We don't even want to say remembering, because if you remember, there's maybe a time that you didn't remember, that you have to think back to recall in your mind. But we have to get to the place of constantly knowing, actively knowing presently what it is that Yeshua has done for you, so that, because the adversary is always at battle, right? He's always fighting, right? He don't take an off day, right? And so we don't have the ability to be able to get to the place where we have to sit around and remember a thing, right? We got to be present with our understanding of what it is that Yeshua has done for us at all times, so that we're able to fight this battle that's going on at all times. All right, so that being said, that's what I wanted to deal with today in terms of this Deuteronomy chapter 20. Does anyone have any last thoughts and comments over here? Did I miss anything? Looks like I see.
I had something, but
go ahead.
It's not really about. It's about the verses, but it's not about what you just spoke about.
Okay, well, what is it?
So there was, I guess, an opinion in the New York Times that someone had contributed, I guess, some commentator or whatever, that they said that God should be canceled because he would be at the head, basically. He would be put on trial for war crimes. Based off of Deuteronomy 20, talking about going in and how to deal with the people killing off the men and taking women and children, or killing off everybody if they was a neighbor.
Yeah.
And but they literally said he should be canceled. That was the word they used. You have anything to say about that, or no?
Yeah, war crimes. The thing is that when we look at what it is that the Most High has instructed for Israel to do in regards to the 7 wicked nations, in terms of wiping them out and not leaving anyone, killing the men, women, and children. I think we have to understand the fact that the Most High is, in fact, the possessor of all knowledge. We're not able to look into the future and know what it is somebody will or won't do. But the Most High, who sits outside of time and space, who the heavens of heavens are not able to contain him, and the earth is his footstool. He knows what these people will do before they can do it. And so the judgment of the Most High can be what you call what do you call it when you a preemptive strike. The Most High can make a preemptive strike and take care of the problem before it exists. When you deal with these wicked nations, their track record is there. Just like the Most High's track record exists, these people's track record exists as well. And so every time Israel intermingled with these other nations, these other peoples, they always brought Israel to a place of disobedience to the Most High. And so why would we think that there would be any type of exceptions at any time when they've always proven themselves to be consistent in that regard? And so, I don't respect people's thoughts about how you feel about the Most High, and he's a terrible God for killing these men and the women and the children when the children didn't even grow up to do anything. You don't have to prove to me anymore that people are inherently wicked, because I see what people do outside of the Most High, and it's obvious to me that people are in fact inherently wicked. No one is good. There is none that is good. And so, we all deserve death. It's because of the loving kindness that we don't have death. If the Most High wiped out every man, woman, and child on the face of this earth, even just right now, he wouldn't be wrong. Because the only reason that we can be in his right standing is because of the fact that we have a Savior whose name is Yeshua, who came and lived and died and rose again and went away and sent back his Ruach HaKodesh to help us to remain on track. And so, I don't have a problem with it. I got a problem with these wicked people who want to sit up here and judge the Creator. Like, you're wicked, and anybody who sat up there and says that, let's uncover your filth and see what it looks like.
Actually, now I think about it, the article came out at Passover time. It came out at Passover time. Oh, that's crazy, man.
But when you think about it, that's what wicked people do. They come
cancel
up with these ideas. You're already in a place of disobedience to the Most High. So you wanna sit up there and be a sower of doubt in the minds of the people who are, because your mind's already made up already. And so let me sow these seeds of division in these other people so that they can join me over here and where I am. These people don't have any they're not thinking in the realms of reality. Again, it's obvious. We're able to, you could just turn on the news and look and see how wicked people are. You can just go outside and walk down the street, and you could know how wicked people are inherently. And these people are people that are living outside of the parameters of the Most High. So I don't have a problem with it. These people, I want to cancel them.
Yeah, that's the truth. And you know, there's a root to all of these issues that exist today.
There's a common denominator,
yes,
right?
Just imagine if those roots would have been plucked before they got a chance to grow. Then who knows how much, you know, wickedness could have been removed from the earth. But it's, you know, the Most High's mercy that those wicked nations in the first place even existed in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the audacity of the creation to try to cancel the creator.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, everybody, you know, he's just. He gives everybody a shot. And once your shot is over, it's the end of the game.
Yeah. I mean, think about me making a robot. This thing that I created. You know, I went and got all of the parts and all of the pieces, and I gave this thing life. And I gave this thing the ability to be able to move and think and to have its being. And this thing to come and kill me in the middle of the night. That's nothing but betrayal. Mm-hmm. However, at any point that I decide to unplug the robot, I have the right to unplug the robot if I want to, because I made it.
Right.
I made the thing.
Right.
It only exists because I put it together.
Just imagine the robot is doing everything that you created it not to do. Like the things you created it to do, it don't do none of those. Yeah, right. It does everything you didn't want it to do.
Exactly. It's so it deserves destruction. But I say, I'll give you a chance to change your mind and come back to the way that I programmed you to behave. But at any moment, if I decide to pull the plug on you, that's actually what you deserve. And so, you know, we have to think about it in that way. Like, you know, we wasn't created to be, you know, running around here defying the one that made us. We was created actually to obey. We was created to do the things that are pleasing to the Most High and live a life of unity with our Creator. And so anything outside of that, you know, is out of bounds. And, you know, the answer for that is, you know, it's death. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Okay, very good. That was good. All right, so that being said, for now, we're going to be done for this week. Make sure to share the video. Make sure you hit the like button at the bottom. Share the video. You know, write your little comments in the comments section. I don't know what the live comments do for the algorithm, but I'm sure that there's more that happens in the algorithm when you write in the actual comment section. So, you know, write something over there, get something, you know, going over there, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button and all of that. All right, so we'll say for now, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Y'all willing, we'll be back on next week with some more.